a former Special Forces soldier, after years of fighting on the battlefield, has retired. He returns to his hometown to find the house where he and his wife and children once lived. Looking back at the old scenes, his heart aches, yet a smile involuntarily forms on his lips, as if recalling the good times with his family. Sadly, the house has been severely damaged by the Red Army. Even more bitterly, his relatives were brutally massacred by Russian soldiers. Former Special Forces soldier Otami has no choice but to dismantle the entire house, taking what remains of his memories and sending them back to Finland. Anything he couldn't take with him, Otami burned in the fire. Along the way, he is stopped and harassed by Russian soldiers. As after the war, Red Army soldiers harbored resentment towards Finnish soldiers like Otami. A young soldier, recognizing him as Finnish, became wary and reported Otami's passport to his superiors. It turned out that this man was none other than Jaeger, Otami's sworn enemy who had murdered his wife and children. Both men were incredibly tense upon learning of each other's presence, knowing that a bloody battle was inevitable. Sure enough, Jaeger ordered his subordinates to prepare to eliminate Otami. Of course, Otami wouldn't sit idly by and wait to die, waiting for one soldier to approach. He pushed open the car door, spilling the alcohol the soldier was holding onto him. Another soldier who tried to play dirty was run over by Otami in a reverse car to teach him a lesson. Seeing that his subordinates couldn't do anything to Otami, Jaeger immediately ordered his armored vehicle to chase after him, determined to kill him. Fortunately, before leaving, Otami captured a Soviet soldier, using his weapon and a few bullets in his pocket. Otami then began preparing his counterattack plan. Having been tailing them, Jaeger was surprised to see Otami's vehicle suddenly stop. He cautiously observed, knowing Otami was a shrewd and tactical soldier. Just seconds later, the troops Otami had sent were shot dead on the spot. Then Otami pointed his gun directly at Jaeger's vehicle. Having years of combat experience, Jaeger knew it was best to remain calm. The subordinate, overestimating his own strength, attempted an attack. With a single shot, the bullet whizzed through the air and struck him in the head. Surprisingly, Otami spared Jaeger's life. After the warning shot, he continued on his way. However, Jaeger, being a scoundrel, not only showed no gratitude for being spared, but when the next group of soldiers caught up, he ordered them to continue tracking Otami. To shake off the Soviet soldiers, Otami decided to take a less traveled shortcut. The one who understood him best was none other than Jaeger himself. Knowing Otami wouldn't take the main route, he honked his horn to signal his men to pursue him. Just minutes later, the enemy soldiers caught up. Jaeger was close behind. He drew his gun and fired repeatedly. But the soldiers were wearing bulletproof helmets, so he was unharmed. One of them even pulled out a rifle and fired back. Luckily, Otami quickly dodged to the side and escaped. But they were relentless. Another man climbed onto the hood and fired continuously into the driver's compartment. Otami quickly opened the car door and slammed on the brakes, causing the man to fall. Even so, the man didn't give up and tried to climb back into the car. Worse still, the man used a grappling hook to repeatedly strike the driver's compartment. After a while, the man was finally thrown off. At the same time, Jaeger's car approached and ran over him. A ruthless man like Jaeger never showed mercy to his subordinates. He was still bloodthirsty, eager to capture Otami as quickly as possible, as this was an order from his superiors. Just a few months earlier, he had been imprisoned for war crimes, for the massacre of innocent Finnish civilians by Soviet Red Army soldiers, including Otami's wife and children. He had retaliated by killing an entire Soviet village, leaving his superiors powerless to stop him. They released Jaeger and tasked him with eliminating the monster he had created. At the same time, his subordinate quickly climbed onto the truck bed. He then kicked Otami out of his seat. His accomplices, who had been lying in wait, rushed forward and opened fire as soon as Otami was exposed. As a result, the soldier's vehicle burst into flames and flew straight up into the sky. He dragged the other soldier out with iron chains, pulling him along the road. Taking advantage of the situation, Jaeger approached the back of the car and threw a Molotov cocktail, causing the wooden planks on his vehicle to catch fire, touching his family's belongings. Otami could no longer remain calm. A short time later, the troops he had deployed arrived. After ensuring the fire no longer harmed the wooden pillars, Otami continued on his way, knowing Jaeger would pursue him. Suddenly, an air raid roared overhead. Seeing that ground combat was ineffective, Jaeger sent an air squadron to relentlessly pursue Otami. To avoid the hail of bullets from the fighter jets, Otami ran into a nearby house. The current situation was extremely dangerous because they could attack at any moment. Thinking this, he immediately came up with a plan. As soon as the car left its hiding place, Yeager's plane dropped a bomb, causing everything to explode. Luckily, he had quickly used a wooden plank on the car's hood to temporarily avoid the gunfire from the airstrike. Then the car sped into the forest to obscure Yeager's view. He thought this would be difficult for them, but Yeager's soldiers were very skilled. He circled around for a while and still spotted Atami's car. He slammed on the brakes, causing the plane to crash into the back of the car. Of course, that old fox was still calmly hovering overhead. He couldn't just fly out like that. He got out and used the tactic of luring Yeager into a false sense of security. But this tactic didn't work for long, as Yeager quickly pursued Atami's car. Unfortunately, due to his excessive firing, he kept missing his target. The fighter jet ran out of ammunition, but Yeager, unwilling to give up, used his own plane to ram into Atami like an iron bird. Then quickly jumped out of the cockpit. He used a wooden plank to deflect the plane's trajectory. The plane crashed into a field and exploded. Yeager then attacked from behind. Of course, this time Atami wasn't going to tolerate it any longer. As he approached, a cunning smile appeared on his face. It turned out that an aircraft had arrived to sabotage the vehicle. Atami hastily returned and drove away, losing control and sending the entire truck into the sea. Facing the life or death situation for himself and his beloved dog, he had no choice but to abandon the vehicle and swim to the surface. Fortunately, the wooden planks were light, so he simply untied the ropes, and the entire structure floated to the surface, becoming a life raft for him and his dog. Meanwhile, Yeager was still alive and well. His subordinates diving to search for Atami. According to him, he had to find him alive or dead. At this point, Atami was still bravely surviving, and he even gathered wooden poles to make a raft to climb ashore. It turned out that this was the Soviet border, so there were still many tanks and weapons left behind. At the same time, Yeager and his soldiers had already set up an ambush, knowing that if Atami wanted to return to Finland, he would have to cross their lines. This time, he chose to confront them. Atami cut the fuel line and used the cannon as an engine to detonate, creating a huge thrust that sent the tank flying into the air, successfully outmaneuvering Yeager and his soldiers. However, he himself was seriously wounded. Yeager took advantage of the situation to shoot him dead. Suddenly, his superior arrived and demanded that he be spared. It turned out they had no intention of truly sparing his life. In fact, they intended to torture him even more brutally to avenge Atami's killing of Soviet soldiers. At this point, Yeager provoked him by recounting how they had tortured and killed his wife and children, and the wooden pillars of his house, which he had so carefully protected, were being used by them to pave the railway tracks. After waiting for him to leave, he struggled to untie himself. The two guards, seeing Atami freed, pushed each other to deal with him. Before long, he had dismissed the two guards. Now it was time to take revenge on the villain Yeager. At this moment, he was still basking in his victory, unaware of his imminent death. First, Atami sneaked into the soldiers' carriage, taking advantage of their deep sleep. He caught one of them off guard. When he turned around, before he could even cry out, Atami's axe was plunged straight into his mouth. Another who saw him was also stabbed several times. Then, while moving across the roof of the train, he unexpectedly got caught in a pipe and fell into another compartment. A chaotic fight was inevitable. The loud explosion alerted Yeager, who, seeing bullets flying everywhere, realized he couldn't stop Atami. He himself had turned Atami into a vengeful monster. Without hesitation, he abandoned the compartments behind him. But Atami wouldn't let him escape so easily. He thought everything was settled and returned to his seat to talk with his superiors. However, Yeager then shot and killed them all to avenge the time they had held him captive. Although the high-ranking officer had bought his life with money, Yeager was still not spared. He was gleefully counting his money when he suddenly turned pale upon hearing the sound of a missile whizzing towards him. It turned out Atami was sitting on it. The moment they met, they wrestled fiercely, each wishing they could chop the other into 100 pieces. Initially, Atami, already injured, gave Yeager the upper hand. However, after a short while, he overpowered Yeager, pinning him down and punching him repeatedly. Just when Yeager thought he had defeated him, Atami unexpectedly turned the tables. He removed the safety catch, causing the missile's warhead to strike him. Yeager tried to escape, but it was too late. The flames from the massive explosion reduced him to dust. After his revenge, Atami drove the truck carrying the wooden pole back to the Soviet-Finnish border. There, two young soldiers on guard watched him with extreme vigilance, because they thought he was a ghost since his body was covered in wounds. Atami carefully showed his passport proving he was a former Finnish soldier. As time passed, the pain subsided somewhat as the house he built from old pillars gradually took shape. Suddenly, A group of men with grim faces and axes approached, making him wary. It turned out they were villagers who, seeing Atami alone, had come to help. After all this wandering, he finally felt the warmth of camaraderie. If only someone had saved his family that day. If only they had met such kind people, his life would have been less unfortunate. The movie ends here. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.